We are recording.
You're listening to the Verhoeven Effect podcast. I'm Conlon.
And I'm Nathan.
And we have another very special episode. We have the 2001 movie Moulin Rouge. I believe that's the way you say it.
Yeah. As far as I'm concerned.
Came out June 1st, 2001. So this is a pre 9/11 movie.
Oh, yeah.
Director Baz Luhrmann, who we did also Romeo and Juliet. This was also his follow-up to Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, I didn't realize that until I was doing some research on it. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah, he doesn't make a lot of movies in general. He has a lot of space in between a lot of his movies. Because he's only made like 7 movies for a guy who's been around since the 90s.
Yeah.
Cinematographer is Donald McAlpine, who, yeah, that's probably how I say his name. He worked with Baz Luhrmann a lot, so that's like a lot of what he does with Baz Luhrmann is kind of what he's known for, and so he's a lot of this is the same people from Romeo and Juliet. Written by Baz Luhrmann and Craig Pierce. I didn't even check up. I wonder if he has any relations to Guy Pearce, who's also isn't Guy Pearce Australian?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. So I wonder if they're related. 2 Australians named Pierce in Hollywood. It can't be a coincidence, can it? Actually, no, it might be different because I think the spelling on Pierce is different.
Yeah. It is not mentioned anywhere in his bio. It's a very small bio, though.
So Pierce here is Pearce. What's the other Pierce? I just immediately forgot his name. Craig Pierce?
Guy Pearce? Yeah.
Oh, Guy Pearce.
I think he's Pearce. I think that's the one. I just watched The Rover recently. Was he in?
Oh, no, that's the same spelling.
Huh. Oh, okay.
Oh, well. Anyways.
I mean, it could be. Australia's not a big country. It's big geographically, but it's not got a lot of people. So I didn't know there were less people or more people in California. It's like, that's weird.
I could see it. But again,
people in California or in Canada too.
Yeah, Canada's big. Yeah, it has an economy unto itself that's bigger than most countries. So
that's true. Yeah, California's bigger economy than the UK.
Yeah, there was a couple of kids at the class who were just talking about like what a shithole California is. Which, again, sure. Also, it's huge. Yeah. There's great places. There are going to be shithole places. But California is not one thing. California is a lot of things.
Well, I was surprised, like, what that one terrorist guy they were talking about was living in the woods of California. And a lot of the, like, bugaboo guy, whatever they are, boogaloo guys, that's, like, California-centric. It's like, you think of, like, northern Michigan or somewhere in the South where all the nuts with guns are gathering to talk anti-government, not like in the redwood forests of northern California. Yeah, that's where a lot of them are. But it's always the same thing. Hey, we can make and sell drugs to raise money for our whatever, anarchy style stuff, and it never works because they're all like weirdos and they don't know how to run a business.
Yeah, if you want to create a revolution, you kind of have to have friends to create a revolution.
Yeah,
or
if you're gonna sell drugs to fund an enterprise, you got to have like a Walter White mentality of I'm gonna do lots of evil stuff, but I'm gonna be low key, not like bold about it.
Well, and have a backstory that's sympathetic until you realize, like, oh right, he's evil. He's not sympathetic anymore.
Yeah, at some point this was lost along the way.
Cast, we have Nicole Kidman, which is the first time that Baz Luhrmann worked with her. I think he worked with her again on when they all came together to make the Australia movie.
Yep.
She's
never seen that either.
She is also Australian, so
yes, surprisingly she is.
Maybe the most famous Australian actress. I'm not sure.
Probably.
Yeah. Ewan McGregor
who's looked beautiful for like 30 years. She's like got that longevity to her too. Oh, she's just as hot now as she was 20 years ago.
Well, yeah. Now she has like kind of the weird thing. Well, it's like the unfortunate thing where it's like for women in Hollywood, where it's like you got to look like you're 20 for the rest of your life, or you're out of Hollywood. So she does have some weird like plastic surgery stuff, but it's like, yeah, at the right angle and with Hollywood magic, yeah, you are absolutely still a beautiful woman. And you would have been a beautiful woman had you aged naturally, but Hollywood won't let you do that. So.
Yeah, but people are shitheads. 'Cause, like, no one can look normal, and it's like everyone's like, "Oh no, you got to do this." Like, did you see Madonna? Like, you shouldn't do that. Somebody said she looked like the Dracula from the Francis Coppola's Dracula. It's like, yeah, she kind of does. Oh.
Yeah, because people are like, what's a 40-year-old woman going to do? She doesn't have agency or does anything. Like, only 20-year-old women can have lives.
Yeah. Yeah, they got there's a lot of dumb ideas out there with people and how they look. But see, I don't live in weirdo land. Around here, everyone looks normal.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's like, people are fat. They're corn fed. Women can pick up axles and carry them and repair farm equipment. Like, that's the kind of women I know, a lot of them. It's like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with them because they don't look any better than me. So it's not like I can judge, like, oh, I'm so much prettier.
Also, Ewan McGregor and John Leguizamo as like that's the top build stars. Which again, John Leguizamo also worked on Romeo and Juliet, so came back for that.
John Leguizamo does weird work like this.
Yeah.
Spawn.
Yeah, he has a very eccentric, weird career.
Oh yeah,
he can do anything: serious dramas, comedies, whatever you want. He's there. He's down. So we have Act 1. We fade in. There's like a stage, and there's red curtains, and then we get the 20th Century Fox opening with fanfare, and there's like a bald conductor down below. Which in the audio commentary makes it sound weird, but like this was like some kind of compromise. Like they make it sound like, yeah, we had to like legally do this. I'm like, well, what were you going to start the movie with? Every movie starts with like who released it and stuff like that. So I have no idea what that was about. But the commentary on the movie is kind of weird because it's like, it's not like one single track commentary. It's like somebody edited together 4 different commentaries with whatever they thought was the most interesting. But at least on the Blu-ray they have like picture-in-picture stuff, so they'll show like behind the scenes at the same time while you're watching the movie, and they'll also have in the corner like what song and where it came from, which is nice because it's like I had to stop this movie like every 5 minutes. Wait, well, what song is that, and who originally wrote that song?
It took longer to license the music for this movie than it did to make the movie. 2 years to get the rights to all the songs. There was some stuff they filmed and just couldn't get the rights to, and never was released. It's like, that's interesting.
Yeah, I forget who was the big holdout on this, but I figure if you can get the Beatles, like you can get anybody.
Beatles, it like depends who owns their work at what time. Yeah, because a lot of the rights were sold.
Yeah, well, I think McCartney has a bunch of them now. I know at one point, like, Michael Jackson owned a bunch of them.
Yeah,
but that got distributed somewhere.
Yeah, well, because everyone's like, well, okay, this guy's no longer seen as a good guy.
Well, I think they got dispensed after his.
This had a cool double disc soundtrack.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the soundtrack to this I think went triple platinum. Like it sold 10 million copies, but it was just all kinds of songs.
They just have like the originals, or it have like the versions from the movie.
Both.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It was a big double disc. It was a big double disc thing. Because I originally think it was part 1 and part 2, and then it just became a double disc.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it was like it made a bunch of money.
You know? Yeah. Man, I remember like used to shopping for CDs. I never actually bought like a Pink Floyd album. I always wanted to. It's like, well, I could get The Wall because that's just like quantity and quality all at the same time. But buying The Wall was like $35 in like 1994, so I never bought The Wall.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I had all those. I have them on vinyl too. Some of them, not all of them.
Because if you're buying them back then, you could probably get them for a steal.
Yeah, some of the vinyl stuff, the used ones was a good price. I got some vinyl some recently, like in the last 5 years. It's not a deal, but it's still cool.
Yeah.
It's that and Jethro Tull is about the only thing I'll spend vinyl money on. And that is like I listen to my record player a lot anymore because that room with all the voluminous crap I've accumulated.
We got titles Paris 1900, which will almost not matter at all because where this movie goes. I wrote with some guy in white face paint is singing, but this is John Leguizamo.
Yeah.
Singing a song called There Was a Boy, which I'm not sure where that's from or if that's original. Then we see Ewan McGregor for a moment. It's all in black and white. There's like flying, snapping camera zooms and all of that. And we go through like the worst of Paris, showing off where it's just like crime and debauchery.
Yeah.
Then we get Ewan McGregor who's Christian and he's drunk in his apartment. Well, I assume he's drunk. I'm not sure if we get like a confirmation. I think there's empty bottles. I don't know. That's just kind of a usual thing. It's like, it's a down on his luck writer. Of course he's drunk when he should be writing.
Yeah.
So he's avoiding his typewriter. Then we get voiceover and Christian explains the Moulin Rouge, which is French for the Red Mill.
Yep.
And it was like it still, I think they rebuilt it. I know it like got burnt down in like 1915 or something like that, but it was a real place that was like a burlesque show in Paris.
Yeah, and it was originally like a grain mill with a windmill. And that part of Paris was like the edge of town.
And it was just like, it was a burlesque slash whorehouse or whatever.
Yeah.
I can't think of like what's the PC way to say that. So yeah, you could go watch a show and then like, hey, I want that lady for the night.
Yeah, you can watch the show and then afterwards sleep with the dancers.
Which is represented here in idea, but they never really like follow through on the seediness of that. Here it's more of a magical place.
It's not Deadwood style. Where it's just like, guys just pouring whiskey on a woman. It's like, come on, tell me do this, you bitch. It doesn't really show like how sad prostitution really is.
Yeah. And Christian, he has fallen in love with a performer, which, we'll find out. She is not, we're not at the Moulin Rouge yet. He's just giving the backstory for it. I also think here what's his name? Is Seidler? The guy who owns, Harold Zeidler. Or is it Zeidler? I think it's Zeidler.
Zeidler, something like that.
Here he's kind of like talking about a moment.
Yeah, Jim Broadbent is who it is. But
well, we don't see him yet, but I think we see a flash of him. But here he almost presents Zeidler as like a villain, although in the rest of the movie he's not really a villain. He's just kind of like the guy who has to bring bad news to everybody. It's like, hey, we're all having fun here, but this is a business.
Yeah.
Where the villain is really like the rich guy. So yeah, he's fallen in love with a performer. And then we get a flashback where Christian first comes to Paris and he talks about like the artists in Paris as being like the children of the revolution. And all of a sudden, like people start breaking into his apartment, including a dwarf, Talot Latroy. How do you say his name? This is John Leguizamo's character.
Toulouse-Lautrec. Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec.
But I think you say Toulouse-Lautrec or something like that.
Something like that.
Well, yeah, with French names, you basically just leave out the you just stop talking halfway through. You say a word.
Yeah.
Which like so yeah, and there was like he did have like John Leguizamo did have like a dwarf body double, but John Leguizamo had to had mini stilts on his knees, and then he had like blue screen or green screen depending on the situation, like wrapped on his legs, and so he's basically walking around on stilts on his knees to do this part, and I guess it screwed up his probably hips and knees. They didn't say what it screwed up, but I imagine that's what it would screw up, so that he had to be in physical therapy for a year after this movie to repair all the stuff to do this role. So
yeah,
that's commitment.
Yeah, I mean it's not just him too. Like Nicole Kidman got hurt pretty badly.
Oh, yeah,
I
she
think she
like broke her ribs or
busted
something like that.
ribs
Yeah.
and did something to her ankle, falling down the stairs. 'Cause the sets are just designed to look cool. They're not really practical.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Um, but yeah, these are a bunch of artists that like break into his room, or like one guy falls in a room and he's like a narcoleptic and he's like their like lead actor, but like they can't use him because he's always falling asleep.
Yeah, he only has his name is only known as the unconscious Argentinian. Yeah, let me just say we'll start out. We've kind of introduced the characters that we're going to know in the first scene. This movie starts out so frenetic, I almost didn't like it. I was like, oh, is everyone just going to act weird like this the whole time? 'Cause it's like so just like, because all this stuff's
Oh,
coming at you like pow, 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 pow
yeah,
once it
yeah,
starts. And it's like, oh, am I going to. This is like kind of the craziness from the beginning of Romeo and Juliet,
yeah.
where it's very I don't know how you'd call it. It's like a lot of things.
Hyperkinetic, and
Yes.
it's hard to it's hard to connect to like what's going on because things are just flying at you. Because I was trying to figure out like, because we'll have the thing later on where you have to pick a scene, and I was like, okay, I'll pick this scene, and I rewatched the scene. I was like, this scene, quote unquote, is like 15 minutes long because it doesn't really stop and things keep happening.
Right.
But you know that kind of is like the energy that Baz Luhrmann brings to movies is just like 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, but it changes kind of. I mean, well, once we get into the singing,
Yeah,
and the musical aspect of it, then it becomes like, oh, okay, I like this a little bit more than this frenetic. Like everyone's like, like acting like a Looney Tune character.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
This is all the introduction, so like I don't know how much like this would have made more sense if they gave it more time, but like they didn't give it any time. So, but they're still going to give you all the information.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, there's a bunch of artists that like fall into his room and they're like they're putting on a play for like potential financiers, which I guess that's why they're in Paris. It's like we're just trying to find rubes to put on our dreams. We need Patreons.
This is Patreons for the Bohemians in 1890s Paris. 1890s is an amazing time to study all around the world, but Paris was like kind of the center of art and culture at that time. But it was literally like a lot of people were like, this is the end of history. It's so funny to read about the things that are written at that time and how people feel. It's like, we have solved all the problems. It can't get any better. War is a thing of the past. The economics will dictate how things are parsed out in the future. The markets will determine it. I mean, we've heard all this before.
Yeah.
We've heard it all again, but it's really amazing. Like this whole movement. See, this is what comes after a time of like extreme horror and violence is like, oh, it's the end of history. Just like kind of like, you had World War II. And then after that, you had like our parents went through like the sexual revolution and the peace movement and all that. It's like, yeah, these kind of movements, these are the same type of people, just they're drinking absinthe and using morphine instead of weed. Yeah, 1890s are a fascinating time to read about in Europe because the optimism it's like it will break your heart. You know what's going to happen in the next 130 years.
Yeah.
And it's like they really thought like we have reached the top of the mountain and it's good. Wow. Okay.
Oh. When was the Eiffel Tower built?
They were starting it. I think it was like in this time it was being built.
Okay.
It was like it was for the World's Fair. Because remember the next World Fair, remember that book we read, Demon in the White City?
Yeah.
That was the World's Fair after the Eiffel Tower.
Oh, okay.
And so it was a
because that guy built the Ferris wheel to try to out Eiffel. That was the thing in the book.
Yeah, because it was literally the largest man-made structure in the world at that time. Was the Eiffel Tower, like what they were building right there. But that's actually not true because the Brooklyn Bridge was more extensive, but that wasn't a freestanding structure, so it goes back and forth. But yeah, 1890s is an amazing time to read about. That's why, if you wonder why I'm a pessimist, it's like, well, because the 1890s. Yeah.
um so like Christian kind of gets like brought into the room, and they're kind of like working on something, and they just like happen upon the hills are alive with the sound of music. Which again, this is kind of the first thing where it's like you either have to go with the movie or not. Because the weird thing about this movie, it's like, all right, it's 1900 Paris, but it's like, wait, why are modern songs popping up? And it's like,
Yeah,
it's just in the milieu, man. It's always been there.
Yeah. All this has happened before, and all this has happened again. Remember Battlestar, fan? This is it.
Which is one of the reasons why I never watched. I think I watched one scene from this movie once, and they had Nirvana pop up, and I was like, that's kind of fun. And then like a minute later, I was like, this is stupid, and never watched it again.
Yeah.
So yeah,
wait, you're like, are they going to do This Corrosion by Sisters of Mercy? You know, is it going to get how straight? Because it would be so appropriate for them. But they didn't. Well, it's just like when they did that in Westworld.
Yeah,
You know, when it's this player piano and it's all the Nine Inch Nails song. It's like, that's cool initially, and then it's like, oh, all right, I get it. You're the smart kids, right? You're the gifted and talented class. Cool, do this cool stuff. But in this movie, the anachronistic music choices are kind of cool. Because a lot of people would be like, don't know shit about shit. It'd be like, did The Sound of Music come out then? You know, it's like, no, it was like many decades later. It's like, did Nirvana steal the song from the French? Wow, they did. That was the irony of Kurt Cobain, was he was from French Bohemians in the 80s. I mean, you can just create this whole conspiracy around it. And people would be like, oh yeah, that's a good thought. Yeah.
And I guess the reason they gave in the commentaries why they just basically use modern music is that Christian is supposed to be like this outstanding poet, and basically they didn't trust themselves to write outstanding poetry a la music. So there's like, well, let's just use music we like and just and play it off as if this is how great of a poet that Christian is.
And it works. This makes this one in particular great. There's other musicals I like Les Mis and stuff. It's like, that's all house written music for purpose built. That's what makes this one stand out, is the anachronistic music choices, which it's cool. It keeps me involved. Like, oh, what are they going to do next? You know, it's like from the age of disco or whatever. Cool. And I know I'm not a big fan of musicals. I'll be completely honest with you. There's like two I like. So
yeah. And I can't even really say I like this one, but with all musicals, I like the energy.
Yeah.
It's just like, but it's always like you have to buy the conceit, and I just never, what do they call that? The suspension of disbelief. I never get over it.
Yeah, see, I just kind of went with it because the story itself was explicitly designed just to be this paper thin love story.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, this is just Romeo and Juliet part 2, which that works great because all the dialogue in this is written in Shakespearean pentameter. I noticed that whenever anyone talks. It's all Shakespearean dialogue. It's not written by Shakespeare, but it follows that same kind of sing-songy, it doesn't use like the old English and stuff. But yeah, it's all, and that's what they did. It's like, this is about the music.
I guess I didn't think like this whole production crew, it's like, that's kind of like their house style, is because like with the Romeo and Juliet, it's like, well, we're just using Shakespeare's words. We're not rewriting them. We're just kind of remixing them. So here they're literally doing the same thing.
I mean, I don't know if they mentioned that on the commentary. I could be full of shit, but I think I'm recognizing that.
Yeah.
I was always really into Shakespeare, so it's like, oh, this is that dialogue. Okay.
Well, I was trying to think. It's like, all right, what would make me buy a musical? Is I actually, the thing I thought up that would actually help me more is that, like, I don't like that everyone is singing and dancing. I would like more representation of the band that's playing the music.
Okay, yeah. Instead of just the conductor who's like this and kind of looking around like, what the hell's going on?
Yeah, the music's got to come from somewhere for the people to sing and dance to.
Yeah.
The other thing I was thinking of is like, you add the sci-fi conceit of like some planet with like a demigod like machine that needs to keep people happy, but because it's a machine, it doesn't actually know what makes people happy. And so people will just suddenly break into song to appease the machine to make the machine think that they're happy when they're not. It's
Yeah.
like that would make a cool musical, and then I'll buy spontaneous singing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one thing. Like you have to put yourself in a different gear in your head,
Yeah.
because people just spontaneously singing, it's like that's weird. Like when Mr. Robot would do that,
Yeah.
it's always like, oh, this is totally strange. But because we're gonna switch gears and go back to a regular story, it's like I kind of like this. Whereas when whole movies like that, it's a little like
I don't know. It's the switching gears that gets me to like kind of fall off the tracks, because I love music videos. If this was just a music video, you'd buy all the dancing and singing. But because sometimes it stops and does a thing, it's like kind of weird. But being that this movie is about putting on a production, the idea of in between the production people are singing and dancing isn't a problem. It's like this is what they're doing.
Right.
So, anyway, so it's suggested that Audrey, played by David Wenham, who I think is supposed to be, I'm not sure if you call it a trans character, I'm not sure, but it's a guy seemingly in women's clothing and makeup. Who the guy who plays this character?
That was a thing back then to be shocking. Yeah.
Well, also that was funny because the guy who's playing this part, he's like Faramir, who I don't know who that is, but you'll know who it is from Lord of the Rings. Yeah. It's like Boromir's brother or something like that. I'm not sure. And also he's like the eye patch guy in 300 that they leave behind to tell the story of the 300.
Oh, okay, yeah. Now that guy I remember more because he had the eye patch. I mean, Faramir, I knew who he was. But... Thus ends the reign of Denethor. He just runs off the building on fire. Like, that's cool. Your dad died. He just immolated himself.
So it suggested that Audrey and Christian like write together, because Christian just suddenly came up with this, The Hills Are Alive with the Sound of Music. And they're like, oh, that's genius. But Audrey doesn't want to do that. So then they just disappear from the movie forever.
Yeah. I was waiting to see, like, what's the conflict? And it's not so long.
Also, somebody touches Christian's crotch for just like a moment.
Yeah, that's the unconscious Argentinian.
Oh, okay.
He is a great man. I can feel it. And then he pulls his hand away like, oh.
And then they're all called like the Bohemians, which I always. What does that necessarily that word mean? Is that just like free spirits, or what does being Bohemian mean, really?
Yeah, I mean, I know it in like the beatnik movement of the 50s. It's just people that live a weird lifestyle. It's a lot of writing, music, just artsy stuff.
Okay.
And usually they're people that are educated, like that studied art in college, but then they want to do like all that shit I learned in college. I'm going to do something completely unconventional, because every generation thinks they're going to reinvent this wheel. And so they always come up with something, but it's always like, yeah, you're still playing musical instruments and singing, dude. You know, it's just like all written works are stolen from Shakespeare, because like everything that he did, that's how the stories you tell in the Western tradition. But yeah, no, Bohemians at this time were people that like just kind of like vagabonds, but people that weren't of one art. They were like, there was musicians, there were playwrights, there were journalists, painters. But it was always like wrapped up in like, fuck the man, or back then they'd call it like anti-establishment.
Oh, okay.
And of course, a lot of sex, a lot of easy sex, because every generation thinks we're the first ones, and they never are.
They do shots of absinthe, and then a magic green fairy appears. It's Kylie Minogue, but it's also like cross voice with Ozzy Osbourne.
Yeah, that's weird. Looks like, huh?
I guess the original design was almost like a monster fairy that was going to be just voiced by Ozzy Osbourne, but then they switched to the Kylie Minogue. Is she British, or is she also Australian?
I think she's Australian.
Okay. She was like a pop singer for like a while there, right? In the 80s, yeah. And then she became like an actor in the 90s. And she does stuff with KMFDM every once in a while.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good representation of absinthe too. I've had it once.
Yeah, again, they get green eyes, and a fairy appears, and they just start seeing a bunch of stuff.
Well, it's just all it is it's high test alcohol. I mean, my take on absinthe is it's because you could buy it here in Michigan like 2 years before you could buy it anywhere else in the U.S. legally because of Canada. It's like, oh yeah, you can bring that down here. It's just high test alcohol with weird herbs mixed in with it, and you basically have to cut it with water because it's like just like Everclear with like bitter herbs, like wormwood and I forget what the other ones were.
Is it dyed green, or is that just the kind of thing that they talk about?
The Czechoslovakian stuff is I didn't have access to that. I think I was Marilyn Manson's absinthe. Anyway, I bought a bottle.
Or is it just like nicknamed the Green Fairy, and then people always just like dye it green in movies to like color coordinate with your imagination?
Yeah, it was a darker amber color though.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I had the best kind, but all it did was make my stomach upset. And of course I was drunk, but it's like, well, I can do that with. I don't need to pay $90 a bottle for that experience.
But the magic green fairy appears, and then like it kind of everything kind of turns into like a rock remix musical mixed with the sound of music.
Yes.
And then we get Harold Ziedler, played by Jim Broadbent, who's fantastic in this role. He's like he's like the
over the top,
which is crazy because usually he plays like just kind of like cherubic like government workers and a lot of British stuff, and here he's a character, like a live character. And they talk about his Diamond Dogs, which is like a bunch of lady dancers that were kind of like of different ethnic backgrounds and just kind of like look kind of dangerous looking and sexy at the same time, but has nothing to do with the rest of the movies. I don't know. What's the origin of Diamond Dogs? It has so many. It gets brought up in many different things and has a bunch of different meanings. Like, what's the origination with that?
I actually don't know. I only know it from the Alistair Reynolds short story.
Yeah, but there's like a ton of things where it's like things get called Diamond Dogs, and I don't know like what the origin of that is. So I didn't know if you're much more read than I am, at least. So I didn't know if you could pull that off the top of your head, but it's all right.
I know it's a David Bowie album.
Huh. Okay.
But that's about it. And because I thought that's because I remember I read that because I thought that's where Alistair Reynolds got the, because what was that book of short stories, Diamond Dogs and Turquoise Days?
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as anything else, I don't know what the reference is. I remember hearing it and I'm thinking, oh, are they talking about, because they use the David Bowie songs in here, are they talking about David Bowie album?
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
Could be.
So yeah, Christian must perform before them, the Diamond Dogs and Ziedler. And then we have a remix of Lady Marmalade Plays. And this is the Christina Aguilera, Lil Kim, and Maya and Pink version of the song. Which was they put that out as a music video around this time. It was pretty big. Because they were also all big, so at the time, so it's like
biggest selling single in 2001. I guess that song's very hard to perform too, because first of all, you're singing in another language for a lot of it, and the way how do they describe it? Like the way the lyrics like come together, you're like almost singing over each other, but you have to do it in a certain way so you don't cancel each other out. And it's like.
But here they switch the lyrics on because in the original it's like in New Orleans, and here they switch it to the Moulin Rouge. So
yeah,
which works because the original is basically about like a brothel as well. Is it just a brothel in New Orleans or something? I actually don't know. And then of course mix in some Nirvana. Here Nirvana is used that they use a lot of like Here We Are Now, Entertain Us. And that's like the crowd basically challenging the performers to entertain them, but they're just using the Nirvana song to just do it literally, which is kind of interesting. So, yeah. And then and then the moment so like they're in the Moulin Rouge at this time, and it's just like hundreds of people, everyone's in dressed nicely and dancing around, and there's like people get moments, and then everybody shuts up and everything time slows down essentially, not literally, but for Satine, who's played by Nicole Kidman. They have Christian and the Duke, played by Richard Roxburgh. He's like the main villain of this. He's just the guy with money. They both immediately fall in love with her. She puts on a song number of Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend. They also like throw in Material Girl in there because like just all music just gets thrown and it's just a big remix factory. It's like
yeah, that's one of the things that impressed me is like merge the lyrics of all this stuff.
Satine does some crowd surfing. Also in the commentary they're talking about like they have a lot of blue light in this. And because Nicole Kidman's so pale, it actually just makes her more contrast, and so she just stands out even more. It's like, see, it's okay to be completely pale. You can make it in Hollywood. They also said that's like the way they used to light people in like, you know, like the 20s or whatever. Back when it was black and white, so like it made more sense to make people pop more if you had pale skin.
Oh, okay.
And here there's some confusion between Satine and Ziedler about who the investor is, because Ziedler's like looking at the Duke and it's like, yeah, it's that guy, but then Satine keeps seeing Christian and thinking that they're talking about him, and basically is like, yeah, you gotta sleep with that guy so we can get money for the Moulin Rouge or whatever. And she's like, all right. So then Satine picks out Christian to like dance with because she thinks he's the Duke. So then there's just like a large group dance sequence. It's like a bit more slower, and then it kind of reaches a crescendo, and then like top hats are ejaculated into the air.
Yes. Good way to describe it.
And then like Satine ends up on a giant swing, and then she faints, and this is not a part of the show. And she falls into the one black guy's arms, who they call La Chocolate.
Yeah, chocolate.
And then Ziedler plays it off as if it's like the part of the show, and then later in the back she's like awoken by smelling salts, and then she starts coughing up blood. So I have that being the end of Act 1. We've introduced the Moulin Rouge with the plot points like this love story, and also she's dying. So end of Act 1.
The holdout songs were the Rolling Stones and Cat Stevens.
Oh, okay.
Cat Stevens had religious reasons. I think the Rolling Stones just wanted too much money.
Yeah, okay.
Because Cat Stevens now doesn't support boozing or prostitution or anything. I think he's like or something now.
Even though this movie probably has like the tamest prostitution in Hollywood.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. You have a bunch
of prostitutes since the Pretty Woman.
Yeah.
Like if you watch Pretty Woman, it's like, well, I want to be a prostitute. It's like, oh no, not really what it's like.
Because even like they have a bunch of like technically upskirt shots, because like all the women have like bedazzled like long skirts, and then like, you know, they'll fling them up and flash the audience, but they basically have like, I don't know what's the equivalent of like 4 diapers on underneath with frills on them.
Yeah. What are those called? Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I mean, it was just underwear that's elaborate, but it was like, it wasn't even like, it was still like, it was even like more than a bathing suit, so it's not really like that. But this movie's not really about like that much titillation. It's kind of, I mean, sure, like, was it PG-13? Like, that's kind of what it feels like, but actually, let's see, I got it right here.
Let's see.
What was this rated? Rated? Oh, PG.
Okay, yeah, I could see that.
Well, I got 2 ratings here. I got a PG and a G. I don't know where it was rated G. I don't think this is a G-rated movie. Not in
America. Because if people are drinking and stuff in it, like that doesn't get you a G rating. Oh, maybe they thought it was like Kool-Aid. They didn't know what it was. Like, they're drinking green Kool-Aid, and they're all wigged out of their mind.
Let's see what our Internet Movie Database says about the rating. I just need to know that real quick. It's like, what was their aim? Where's it gonna be listed? Crap, this is always a crapshoot as to where they actually list the rating. It's either going to be at the top or like at the bottom. PG-13.
PG-13. Yeah, it seems fine.
Yeah, okay. But yeah, it's like I don't remember any swearing or anything like that, and obviously no nudity. So, so then we start Act 2. We have Satine as being like having a corset crushed onto her because she's expected to sleep with the Duke, so she's got to be at her best, I guess, by having her stomach crushed to nothing.
Even though she has like tuberculosis.
Yeah.
Sexy tuberculosis.
And it also seems like Nicole Kidman got like extra skinny for this role anyway. So it's like,
yeah.
Well, if you're going to be wearing those costumes, got to be skinny as hell.
I gotta remember, like French women, I think the standard size over there is like 2 to 0. Like that's just, again, it's that whole cigarette and cheese diet. It really works. And they just don't eat a whole lot either.
Yeah. Well, I mean, smoking does a thing to your. You don't want to eat too much when you're smoking. So
that never worked for me, but I just powered through it. I was like, tacos, tacos.
So
at the ripe old age of 50.
Christian and Satine are in her private room, which is an elephant.
Yeah.
Which
was a real thing.
It was really a 60-foot elephant.
Yes.
And when they did these scenes, they had to have like a special cable attached to them, so in case they fell.
Yep. Yes, and the real elephant, you could pay a franc and go in there and smoke opium and watch the show from inside the elephant. Which it's like I would pay a franc to go in there or opium or whatever that is.
There's like a comical miscommunication about like what is expected of each other, because he thinks like, oh, well, I get the chance to perform my play for you, and she's like, are we gonna have sex?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's also it's like, you know, they're talking about two different things. Like, yeah, you know, he's like, I have this poem, it's really long, and she's like, oh, good, it's long.
Yeah. I want to try it in a new way. It might be disrupting to you at first, but I'm a modern man or something. Yeah. It's like they're talking about two separate things.
Yeah. She grabs his crotch and throws him in bed. And then they kind of like writhe around and like she's on top of him and like, are they having sex? But no, they're just kind of weirdly grinding.
Yeah. They have about 15 minutes of clothes to take off.
Yeah.
They're wearing like, might as well be wearing suits of armor.
Then he finds his inspiration and breaks out into song. And like, I wrote, "What is this song?" And it's "Your Song" by Elton John.
Yep.
But, I believe almost like 90% or whatever of the singing is done by Ewan McGregor and Nicole Kidman when it's them. So,
which is amazing because I heard this is a story from Baz Luhrmann and why am I drawing a blank on Leonardo DiCaprio? He wanted Leonardo DiCaprio to do this, and so they brought in Leonardo DiCaprio and a piano player, and they're like, sing a song, and I forget which one it was, and they both were like, nope, this ain't happening. Because Leonardo DiCaprio cannot sing. Because they wanted to do it. He was like, this would be cool, and it's like, no.
This is gonna be too much work. This is already way too much work.
I guess he just cannot sing, and he even admits it. He's like,
Al just dubbed me over. It's like,
Ewan McGregor is a very talented actor that he can sing like that.
Yeah.
Especially because his normal speaking voice is like that mouth of marble Scottish accent. Oh, this guy can sing beautifully, but he talks like he's got a bunch of rocks in his mouth.
I don't know. That's kind of a thing with British people, where like they're unintelligible, especially like Ozzy Osbourne. But then they're singing, and you can understand them.
Yeah. Sometimes when they sing, they don't have an accent. It's like, that's weird.
Yeah.
That's super weird.
I remember thinking I always thought Green Day was British because he
Oh, yeah.
basically sings in a British accent, like they're a British pop band. It's like, nah, he's just a dude from Southern California.
Yep. He was a big fan of what was punk, probably into the Sex Pistols, and just
Yeah.
like that's how he sings because he's like listened to a bunch of British guys jamming out the punk, and he's like, oh, okay, this is how you sing.
And that was the thing, same thing with Ministry because he sang like a with basically like a British accent for like
Yep.
his early career because he was like, well, that's what they do. And then he basically like, all right, let's roll up the garbage, let's roll up the marble mouth glass and asphalt machine and just sing in garbled music.
I'm gonna sing in my voice after I struggle with acid,
Yeah.
and it's gonna sound cool.
And then of course the same thing, yeah, with the British bands that like they basically sing in an American accent too. And there's like that, it'll pop up on Reddit every now and then about like there's like this Italian musician who basically made a challenge where he's like, man, I bet if you just make a music with a tune and sing with an American accent, but the words are unintelligible, the Italians will put it at number one. And of course, that's exactly what happened.
It was considered one of the first like call and repeat like rap songs. They played that song in I think it was the second season of Fargo, like maybe the third season. It's like called Peas and Coal and Antonin Chuzo or whatever. But he made it because he didn't speak English, but he thought that sounded like English. He spoke Italian, and yeah, it's actually a weird song because it's like him singing to a crowd of people or a group of people in a room, and then they're singing back, saying the same things, and it's all gibberish.
Yeah.
But to Italians, it sounds like English, and it's like, oh, this is cool.
I can't remember what it's called, but it also has a really cool music video where it's like, wait, this is because it was like, I don't know, like the 60s or something like that. It's like, this is pretty cool. It's like, you fooled me too because this music is good. I know the words are unintelligible, but this is a cool music video and the beat is good.
Actually, Ewan McGregor was in that one. That season, he played two different people.
So yeah, they sort of
find it. Yes, hold on. It's yeah. Now that we're talking about it, I can't play it, of course, because why?
But Nathan will give you the words to search Google with.
Yes. The song. Oh boy, this is gonna take me a bit to actually read this. Prison Cole Leanne Inan Kulzo by Adriano Celentino. And it says lyrics, and it's just gibberish. Indicall min sivan prison. Yeah, I guess you have to speak Italian to actually say this, but it's not Italian either. It's just gibberish.
No, because he's singing it in like an American accent, but it's gibberish. He basically sounds like oh crap, who's the guy who used to be a folk singer and then went electric?
Oh, there's a couple, like Bob Dylan or something.
Yeah, he sounds like Bob Dylan. He sounds like he's doing a Bob Dylan impression when he sings this song.
It's called the Italian English gibberish song. Like if you just look that up, that's what comes in. And it's also interestingly considered one of the first call and repeat. They don't call it like hip hop, but it's like that's what kind of a hip hop song. Came out in 1972.
Oh, okay.
It's a really weird, it's a weird thing. But anyway, let's hurry. We got like 20 minutes and I gotta go.
Oh yeah, there's a singing moon. The Bohemians are like staring in on them and like, are they gonna have sex? Like, let's look harder. Satine finds out.
Let's will it into existence.
Satine finds out Christian is just a writer and not the Duke, so she gets mad. And then the real Duke shows up, and so she hides Christian away. And awkwardly, she's like trying to distract the Duke while seducing him. And so she makes the Duke fall in love with her by using the lyrics from Spectacular. I'm not sure what that is. That's like a thing in this movie.
Well, that's the thing that they're trying to produce.
Okay.
but she's actually like, yeah, she's singing. Oh, I forget.
Or
It's
is she
kind of
or is she reusing like the words that Christian was using?
yeah,
I
she's
thought
reusing his words.
okay, yeah.
So there's it's the sound of music again, essentially.
Okay. Well, there's also stuff from the Your song, the Elton John song in there too,
Yeah.
I think. She kicks the Duke out, and then she has another fainting spell, and Christian's there, so the Duke comes back in, and he's like, "Foul play," and then they're just like, "Oh wait, no, we're just we're doing practice for our play. We want to sell it to you." um. Oh yeah, I wrote Christian has to weaken at Bernie's Satine because she's like passed out, and he's like holding her, like taking her around and like trying to like make her seem alive. Um, and then the Bohemians pop in and like to kind of like play on the ruse about it being a rehearsal, and then Christian improvs a pitch meeting to like the Duke, and it's basically what's happening around them. It's like what's happening, but they just put it into a different kind of thing. It's almost like the thing from The Usual Suspects, where he's just like making stuff up with stuff around the room.
Oh yeah, like he's like the quartet dry erase board. I was in a barbershop quartet in Skokie, Illinois.
The Duke buys the pitch. We cut to Christian is off to write the play, but he's too distracted by like the possibility of being loved by Satine, because she's kind of rebuked him, but then she's kind of like enthralled by him too. Satine performs One Day I'll Fly Away,
Yes.
which is written by Randy Crawford, who is a woman. I don't think I've heard of a woman named Randy, but
Yeah, it's maybe with an I. Who knows?
no, it's with a Y. I looked it up.
Stacy's like what do you call it? Stepsister? Yeah, her name's Randy, but it is with an I.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Christian shows up to thank her and to test whether like their love is real. They trade things back and forth. It's like you can't live without love. You can't live you can't live in the streets with either, she says. And they like trade like back and forth, like basically lyrics with love in it, you know, like love is all you need and stuff like that. And she's saying stuff where it's like, no, love is a bad thing, because she's basically like, I just need money to live, I don't really need love right now. So that's her dilemma. It's like, wait,
love is great, but living on the streets is terrible. Yeah.
And then she says, you're going to be bad for business, I can already tell. Then we flash forward a Christian with a beard and alcohol. He keeps writing. We flash back, and the Duke forces a contract on Zeeler and demands that Satine be exclusive to him. So basically, he's just signing like a sex contract.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we have a montage of Satine and Christian kind of like making their relationship only exist during rehearsals, but they're clearly having sex and stuff like that, which is pretty dangerous, being that she has a
communicable wasting disease. I understand sex is good, but is it that good?
He just has a way better immune system.
Yeah, that must be it.
Zeeler confronts Satine.
I was thinking about that too. It's like, it's what, just doggy style? I mean, I don't know how they're doing this or why.
Zeeler confronts Satine about her relationship with Christian and tells her to call it off, just basically because it's like, that contract makes it like, you know, it's like if Satine falls for anybody else or is with anybody else, then it's over. And then like
because he holds the deed to the Moulin Rouge now.
Yeah.
That was like the stake of rebuilding it to make this play, was like, well, I get her and I get to hold the rights to this place because, you know, I'm spending all my Duke of Monmouth money to on this place so I can have sex with this prostitute, which I'm a Duke and I have millions of dollars. I can have sex with the best prostitute in Paris. Well, for some reason, this is the only one for me.
Yeah. Satine has a
prostitute that doesn't have a degenerative waist.
Yeah.
But okay.
Satine,
don't look too deeply into,
yeah.
You know.
It's more about the idea, not the what's actually happening. Satine has another blood coughing and fainting spell. Zeeler covers for her, saying that she's like confessing her sins and like he's working in Like a Virgin lyrics.
Yeah.
So there's
weird.
So Satine is dying of consumption, which he said is like tuberculosis.
Yeah.
She breaks up with Christian for various reasons, but blames it on like needing to keep the Duke happy. We have a montage of rehearsals where Christian is trying to like woo her back. The Duke is clued in on the similarities between like the sitar play. Oh yeah, because like the whole play they're making up, they make it's like, oh, it's about like India, and there's the like what's they call it, Maharaja? What do they call that? Maharaja, and then like a sitar player. It's basically it's the Duke and him as a writer, but they just like cover it up with which interesting because like this movie was inspired by them going to Bollywood and being like, wow, this stuff is crazy and doesn't make any sense, but we love the energy. And so they made the same thing and didn't involve anybody from India in this movie.
No. Well, because Baz Luhrmann said, could like Western audiences get into something with this much song and dance, but also with a dramatic story?
Yeah.
Where it wasn't just like, well, I mean, because this is a musical, but it's really different from a lot of them. Yeah.
But no, what I'm saying is like if I wanted to be like super woke, it's like why are we all having all the white people play all the Indian roles?
Oh well, yeah.
Which they probably weren't concerned about at the time. So 9/11 just around the corner, not things we're concerned with.
Yeah, I think it was a different. We were heading into again the end of history was like, about to like change again. So, plus, if you ever like, there's a theater around here that shows Bollywood movies.
Yeah.
And it's like Showtime, 5 hours and 6 minutes. Like what? So movies like 5 hours long?
Oh
like,
yeah.
Holy crap! And then it's like they have like full like catering trucks outside. I've almost thought of going to one and just like eating the food, watching the movie, not having a guy like, hey, because most Indian people are really cool and engaging, or a lot of them I found to be. Can you explain this to me? I'll buy your ticket. Let's just talk about this the whole time, and they'd probably be glad to do it.
Well, I've been meaning to watch that RRR movie, which I just hear nothing but great things about, and it's just a crazy Hindi movie with super large action sequence. It probably has a musical sequence. I don't know, but like the
is
action
that the robot one.
No.
Okay.
This is what it's a Netflix like released movie, and it just like the action scenes from it are incredible.
Okay.
They are magical. It's like a 3-hour movie too, and I've heard nothing but great things about it. It is in Hindi, but
well, I got subtitles,
and also it's larger than an action movie, so you can get over it. So.
Oh, I like I've watched all the Indian like murder movies and police shows on that. I have watched those with rapt fascination, and I don't know why. Because it's just something. It's so different and so similar.
Yeah.
Because it's like, well, this is obviously completely alien culture to what I understand, but they're also like they're doing the same things we're doing.
Yeah.
It's just they're doing it in an Indian way, which is kind of interesting. Because like their ideas about crime or stuff is like, first it's unthinkable that anyone would do this, and you got to get past all that, and then a guy shows up who's like, yeah, I'm really smart and I know why people do this, but you got to accept the fact that people do this. It doesn't just happen in movies from America or the UK. It's like this can really happen here, and then everyone slowly kind of accepts like, okay, we're gonna follow this guy. Meanwhile, like 6 other people have been killed. It's like if we had just got through this initial bullshit part, we could have been on the case, which is also a sadness in the story. It's like, wow, this is cool. But then again, they don't do interpersonal like stories very well. Like, what's this guy's relationship with his wife? It's like, well, he hits her. It's like, oh, okay, wait a minute. Okay.
So yeah, the Duke's clued on the similarities between the play and him, and so the Duke changes the play so that Satine's character falls for the Maharaja. Maharaja?
Yeah.
Over the piteous sitar player. And so the Satine woos the Duke in real life to keep things as they are. Satine goes to sleep with the Duke. A version of Roxanne is used as a parallel.
Yes.
And the pitfalls of dating a sex worker. There's you don't have to put me. There's like a musical rape scene or something, but then
yeah, it was really weird.
But then La Chocolat shows up and he stops it, and so La Chocolate brings Satine to Christian, who confesses her love to him. The Duke makes an ultimatum that the ending, like that his ending, must be used, and that Christian will be killed if he doesn't get what he wants.
I like the Amadeus vibes I got in this with the whole thing with the Duke changing the play, because it very much reminded me of a movie we watched a few episodes ago, Amadeus. It's like, yeah, the rich, the Patreon guy. It's controlling the art.
Which I imagine was probably some, being that this, it's a Hollywood movie. There's probably just some like, we relate to this.
Yeah, we're repressed like this. It's like go back to my mansion with my built-in stuff.
And then Ziegler tells Satine that she's dying, which probably she should know that, but already. Yeah. But oh well.
Why does the manager of the local whorehouse know? Like, well, he would know a lot about diseases, you see, because he manages a whorehouse. Right, okay.
So we have Act 3. The show must go on. Satine tells Christian that he won't get what he wants, and so it's time for the play. And then
I was hoping when they said the show must go on, we do like the Pink Floyd The Wall, where they'd come out on stage just eins, zwei, ooh, you'll never stop me now, but they didn't get me for this.
Yeah, I wrote, and thus a bunch of white people are playing Indians. But
goodbye, cruel world. Over. Walk on by. Didn't happen. I'm just making up my own Moulin Rouge at this
I'm suddenly blocked from all my Pink Floyd knowledge, so I can't join in on the fun.
There's a very racist lyric in there too, which I don't want to get thrown off. It's not like inward racist, but it's when he becomes the Nazi in The Wall. There's a lot of stuff. It's like, oh wow, crazy.
Christian, having been banned from the Moulin Rouge, sneaks his way in to watch the performance. Christian and Satine end up in the play before the audience, where like Christian's now playing the role of the that was the original sitar player. Ziegler covers for it, saying like, it's in disguise. We all know who this is, and the audience is just like, the audience is just loving this. By the way, they love.
Yeah, they're completely enraptured in something they would have no foreknowledge of. But.
The Duke's hitman is like holds off on shooting Christian because now he's in front of the audience. Here we have like Christian giving up on love, and then Satine is like dying on stage. He's like walking out of the building. She's dying on stage and she's heartbroken. And then Tallulah True, John Leguizamo shouts, "The greatest thing is to love and to be loved in return," which now gives Christian pause. And it's a whole thing because he's like jumping across stuff to like grab a bell to ring it to yell this to the audience when he's like behind the scenes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Also, there was a whole thing I missed, I guess, with this character where he's actually in love with Satine as well, but because of his situation, he just knows it's never going to happen because he's a dwarf, and that's just not in the cards for dwarves.
Yeah.
Which I didn't really pick up on, but they said that in the commentary. I was like, oh wait, yeah. That's kind of why he's singing in the beginning of the movie, because he wishes he was Christian, even though Christian is now sad because he lost the love of his life. He's like, I wish I could have lost love. That would have been awesome.
Yeah. Better to have loved and lost than never to have loved.
Yeah. Exactly.
Art says.
And then here Satine breaks out into song again to inspire Christian. And then he turns back, and then Christian starts singing back. The hitman keeps trying to shoot Christian, but like the cast is like trying to keep the gun away from him. They keep kicking it around and stuff. And then the gun ends up near the Duke, who takes it, and like he goes to shoot Christian, but then Ziegler punches the Duke, and the gun comically flies away, and then like hits the. And now it's like this hits the. No. What's the tower? Now I've completely forgot what the tower is called.
Eiffel Tower?
Yeah, it's Eiffel Tower, but like it's like, well, that gun would now have to be the size of a house to hit the Eiffel Tower and bounce off. It doesn't matter. It's a funny.
These guys are drinking absinthe.
Yeah. And then the play concludes with thunderous applause, Then Satine has her last fainting spell of tuberculosis and dies in Christian's arms. Um, and so like the curtain closes, and so everyone, it's an interesting dynamic because the crowd is like, that was amazing. The curtain closes, and now everyone behind the curtain is like, she's dead, we're all sad. So
Yeah.
one side joy, one side
I mean, they are
sadness.
just rapturous standing applause. And on the other side, everyone's like, love has been lost forever.
Yeah. And the Duke walks away angrily. We have Toulouse Lautrec sings in the windmill, and we're back at the beginning, and we're back to the present of this movie. And Christian finishes writing his story about love. The curtains close, and the conductor's back. And then the first credit is dedicated to Baz Luhrmann's dad, who like died during production.
Oh,
So, and that is Moulin Rouge.
yeah. I mean, if you're in the mood for an interesting musical with a lot of great music from the 70s, 80s, interspersed with a 90s with it's fun to watch. Don't
Yeah.
let the first 10 minutes like put you off. Though.
I mean, I always have a hard time with musical. Like it was fine, but also I just remember like if you look at the critical response to this, like people love this movie, at least in Hollywood, and it got a lot of like Oscar attention too. It didn't win. I think like A Beautiful Mind like won the Oscar this year.
Yeah,
But
Beautiful Mind crushed it.
um, but it was up for a lot.
Considered
of
one of it's considered one of the best movies of the 21st century. And if you're into musicals, it is.
Yeah.
And if you like this kind of entertainment, it is like the best thing. But see, this is before Mamma Mia and all that, so
Yeah.
it's like that's in terms of engagement. I think that's a little more approachable. But this was a cool movie.
Well, I think like a few years later, like this kind of brought it up because like then Chicago was like a big critical and commercial successful hit too, and people kept kind of doing stuff like that. I'm not sure where it faltered, or if they just stopped doing it. I know Mamma Mia came out later, like you said, and that was a huge hit as well. That would like made billions of dollars. So I don't know. I guess they're keeping doing it. So.
Well, the thing with doing like this was kind of a one and done just because what the rights to things cost now.
Yeah.
Because everyone who has the rights to songs, it's usually management companies, and they all think they're sitting on platinum.
Yeah.
And they want to charge you I remember when Adam Carolla was talking like 10 years ago about licensing of a fairly obscure like jazz thing, and it's like, yeah, I want to license this song for my $500,000 movie. It's like, oh, it's $70,000 to use it, and he's like, no, you're fucking crazy. I just told you for a $500,000 movie, I cannot spend a quarter of the budget and everything. Well, that's what it goes for. He's like, okay, fuck you. Then I'm just going to use a generic thing. I'm going to get some session musicians, and that's what we're doing. So yeah, I don't think because this isn't what you call original content. So things like Les Mis, Mamma Mia, stuff like that, those are mostly songs written for that particular thing. So you don't have to worry about buying the rights. Like I said, cost more. It took more time to get the rights to this than to make it. So.
Yeah, this is interesting behind the scenes stuff where you see like where Baz Luhrmann just shot like the movie like with a handy cam, but it's like kind of like prep work.
Yeah.
And you could see like the different states when like you would see Ewan McGregor was like now he has long hair and now he's in like jean shorts because he was like doing different movies in between while doing, so it's like, oh yeah,
he was doing a Star Wars movie while this was going on.
Yeah, probably.
And he was very drunk the whole time if you ask him. So.
But also it's like you can see why it's like, oh yeah, this is why camera is like, because it was basically like these are the same exact shots and stuff, but like a movie camera just does magic when you put the right lighting and all the stuff into it. You can't just shoot a movie on a handy cam and have it look like a theatrical movie. But
oh yeah, there's a reason like cameras cost $50,000 for this kind of work.
And I forgot to ask, like, do you have any personal history? Like, did you see this in theaters?
No, this is the first time I watched it.
Oh, okay, me too. Yeah.
Was when I watched it today. I've never, like I said, I don't do a lot of these. It's not really my genre.
Yeah.
The only reason I like Les Mis so much is it's cool and the songs mean something to me, especially the one where it's like, there's got to be more than life than this. I was like, yeah, no shit. I mean, I felt that way since I was 9. And it's also based on a book that I like. So like yeah, musicals are kind of a strange animal to me because I'm not like happy go lucky.
Yeah.
I'm more like The Shining than musicals, but it's like oh okay.
I don't know,
Sometimes
but well, they made this one musical called like Repo the Genetic Opera, which is
yes,
just a weird sci-fi movie. It's like, oh, maybe this will interest me because like the situation is way different, but I still didn't like it. So it's like, I guess I just don't like musicals.
it's not my genre,
Yeah.
but yeah,
I keep trying. I don't know. There was that one Polish movie we watched about the mermaids. That one was really cool. So
yeah. I mean, my favorite, my go-to musical has always been Les Mis. I want to see that one more time as a production before I die. So I got to see it once in Chicago with the original American cast, which was cool. Cost like $500, and that's early '90s bucks, but I did get to see it. I do have all the songs on my playlist from that. This was cool because it was modern music,
yeah.
and I like the actors. I always like Ewan McGregor. I think Nicole Kidman's hot. I remember her from Dead Calm to to today, and she's always been fun to watch. She's like another one, like a Sigourney Weaver. Like I always like these kind of women acting
Yeah.
because they're not like conventionally beautiful, but they are at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I enjoy watching that. And this was cool. This isn't like I'm not going to watch this 20 more times, but I don't regret watching it.
Yeah.
So
And then we have a new segment for the show, which I wrote as a Hail Mary probe, but I don't know. Nathan said like we're sending out the Voyager probe.
V'ger must merge with
V'ger,
the
yeah.
creator. I was going to put that drop in, but I figured we'd get like hacks.
Yeah.
Like okay, I'm just going to say it badly. I'm going to do Perseus Kambata dialogue badly.
The conceit is we're sending a probe into space containing a supercut of scenes from the imperfect collection of the movies that is the Verhoeven Effect.
Yeah.
We get one scene to send into the supercut. And they won't necessarily be seen in the order that they are produced, like they're broadcasting, so they could be seen in any order. So you have to keep that in mind, is like what scene you're going to send out there and what scene will precede it or maybe or where it might show up, so it doesn't have to necessarily have context. Although you also have to know that all context for the scene will be lost, because that is the only part of the movie you're getting is the one scene.
That's it. So you gotta, and I read that as you gotta explain the movie in one scene, which is why I chose the Your Song, the one where they're in the elephant.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And like I said, I was gonna play it, but I can't. John will sue us. But that's, to me, that describes this movie perfectly, because it's about this is my gift, my love to you. I've never experienced love. I want love, and of course, she's like offering the counter coup to that, which explains this whole movie. All you need to know about this movie: this guy's never experienced love. Has romanticized views about love. He's offering his love unabashedly, with no limitations, with no safeguards. He's not using his Tor browser with his love. He's like, looking out there, you know exactly what I am. And it's going to end in sadness and horror. It's going to be a drunk. So if I had to pick a scene from the movie that demonstrated that would be it.
All right.
That's my logic.
Yeah, well, that's more than I thought, so we're going to throw that one in there, because I was just going to pick the first Moulin Rouge scene where they're singing like with Nirvana and stuff like that, because it's just the most bombastic and crazy, and then visually interesting part of the movie. I like the energy there, but I don't have any kind of other logic. I don't have the kind of care and logic that you put into it, so we're throwing the Your Song scene?
Yes.
Your Song scene in there. All right.
My gift to you is my song. My song is a gift to you, or something like that. Yeah. Like I said, I can't play it. God damn, I'd get it right if I could, but oh yeah, because we know we're gonna make millions of dollars off Elton John podcast. So yeah.
So that's
only like that's only based on like, oh, I want to explain this movie in like 1 5-minute scene. That's what I could come up with. What you're describing is like, that's really what the movie is, like the scene you picked. But if I wanted to explain the character's motivations and why all this is happening, it would be that scene.
Well, also, like, the idea of like, we have to explain, this is going to try to explain what humanity is, was, or could have been. Like that's more explaining what humanity is. Like humans want to love and have happiness, but it doesn't always happen.
Yeah, it almost never happens.
And we're either still around or gone because of it. So,
Yep.
and then what this thing does, like next time we pick something, we'll know like what scenes we've thrown in there before. And so like, do we pick a scene and pair it with another scene from another movie, or do you just pick the best scene from a movie? So that's the idea, is just have something that, every podcast we do contributes to the amorphous idea of sending a probe into space with a supercut of movies. So
actually, we could probably like launch this. Like we could go to like one of the private space companies and it's like, yeah, let's send just like a gold record shots from a movie to the aliens, and they're gonna freak out at first because we're ugly, and then it's because we're making weird sounds. They're gonna look and they're gonna see something of themselves in it. Because like in what was the book, the latest Andy Weir book,
Hail Mary.
Yeah, Hail Mary, when it's like, oh, if it's a giant spider, it's like, how is it going to relate? That was the best part of that book. I wanted to see what this alien looked like, and it's a spider. It's like, yeah. That's all I have.
Well, if you like what I heard, how can't you? You can go to podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/Verhoeven Effect, or you can go to verhoeveneffect.com and it'll take you to the same spot.
Yeah.
We used to have Anchor FM, but now it's been merged into Podcasters by Spotify or something like that. So
yeah, now we're with Spotify, like us, and then Joe Rogan.
We're getting paid the same.
Yeah, I just quit my job. We're doing this.
You can rate us whatever you want on your platform of your choice, but remember, the only thing the algorithm listens to is the highest rating. So remember, you control the algorithm. The algorithm doesn't control you. We also have listener support at verhoeveneffect.com, where you can support us a monthly stipend of either 99 cents, $4.99, or $9.99. Find us at Twitter at Verhoeven Effect, Facebook Verhoeven Effect. You can find us on YouTube at American Greed Factory and watch both this and that show live and unedited. And we have t-shirts at belowthecollar.com/Greed Factory. So for the Verhoeven Effect podcast, I'm Colin.
And I'm Nathan. And I have one last thought. Whatever you think of this content, because, we were talking about the algorithm not controlling you and rate it whatever you like. No matter how bad you think this is or how good you think it is, depending on, whatever your belief system is. Remember, this wasn't generated by AIs. You guys sat down and did this. So as imperfect as it is this is basically what humans can do. This is what V'ger is seeking, to be one with the creator. So no matter what, remember, we are the creators. This is the Verhoeven Effect. I'm Nathan.
I'm Colin. Goodbye, America.